What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the 10-7 MMA. I'm Diaz. He's Dino Bam Bam. And today, we wanted to just break down a little bit about what we just saw this past weekend in the Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz boxing match. Leading up to it, I wanted no parts of it.
Yeah.
And literally, we were texting beforehand, like, how sad. I want nothing to do with this fight.
Yeah, I mean, the UFC card was a pretty bad UFC card before it, so we dealt with all that. And I was like, what a great way to end this night. After a boring-ass UFC card, we get to see Jake Paul knock out Nate Diaz.
And he almost did.
Oh, yeah.
I thought Nate Diaz was going through the ropes in that knockdown.
Yeah.
And goes to show you, man, like, he does really, truly have a granite chin. He's not a 195-pound person. Yeah. Jake Paul, potentially on steroids.
Yeah, I think so.
Probably, right? I mean, why wouldn't he be? Who's testing him? You know, it's not sanctioned officially. So, anyway, we just wanted to get into a little bit, just in general, it's been a phenomenon, right? Like, the Jake Paul, the influencer boxing events. It's not just Jake Paul, but he's the one really that got it all.
KSI and, like, all these other guys doing it. Logan was doing it with Floyd and all that bullshit.
He's the one, and then you got, like, Salt Poppy and all these guys now doing their thing. Like, I get it. I get it all. There's a lot of money to be made, right? Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things, man. Like, Jake Paul fights. You hear he's fighting, and I'm like, when the Nate Diaz fight was announced, I'm like, please, no.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Tyron Woodley, like, you're completely washed. Nobody gives a shit about Tyron Woodley anymore, right? Mm-hmm. Nate Diaz is like, dude, everybody loves Nate Diaz. Like, please don't do this to us.
Yeah.
You know? But it's one of those things where we're fighting fans. We're MMA fans. We're boxing fans. You know, we started off as boxing fans, certainly. So it's almost like a pop culture event at this point, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. My biggest question with this whole thing that's going on is really, what's the end goal? What's getting accomplished here, right? So you're Jake Paul. Are you out here trying to become a real boxer? Are you trying to become a world champion? We know he's called out Canelo. We know he's called out
That's
Conor.
all fake, dude. Canelo's not going to waste. He knows Canelo's not going to waste. That's like me calling out Canelo.
Right, of course. So what's the point? Is it just a money grab, you think?
It's just about the money, dude.
Yeah.
It's all about the money. And listen, I give Jake Paul respect. He's not a bad boxer.
Yeah.
He's
solid.
He's solid.
He's improving.
He's improving. He's got decent power. But I do think in a way that Nate Diaz exposed him almost, right? Yeah. Where it's like, dude, you could have finished Nate Diaz. Like, it looked like you dropped him, like, but he couldn't find that kill shot. Mm-hmm. He couldn't find that finish. Ultimately, dude, money is the only thing. Like, there's no way it's about anything other than that. And I know Jake Paul, like, it's not like he's positioning himself to be a true pro boxer. Yeah. He's not like out here, like, if he was, he'd be looking for boxers to fight and to move up and fight these different guys.
Agreed.
So
I agree with you. And then I think about it, and it's like, all right, if Nate Diaz is taking this fight, Dino, he fought Conor McGregor twice, right? Then we have Anderson Silva took the fight before that. These are huge names in the sport, guys that have made a ton of money on pay-per-views.
Two of the biggest draws in the history of the UFC.
Right. So if they're taking this fight, why wouldn't the other 90% of MMA guys take this fight? We've seen Masvidal respond to Jake Paul on social media.
Yep. Dude, Conor responds.
We've seen Conor respond to him a couple times on social media. So it's like, you are getting the attention of the MMA world, but it's like, why aren't you getting the attention of the boxing world? Or is he? I don't know.
He's not, bro.
We don't know what his pay-per-view.
You hear Eddie Hearn and these guys talk about him.
Yeah.
They don't talk about him positively. Like,
yeah.
Like,
my question is, all right, we have guys like, like Errol Spence and like all these, all these boxers that are, the top guys right now, right? We saw the Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis fight not too long ago.
I want to know the numbers of pay-per-views.
Exactly.
Between those, the Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford fight, and this Jake Paul Nate Diaz fight.
Exactly, because to me it's like, if this is doing better numbers, literally shame on the boxing community. Because I don't think the boxing community is coming out in droves and buying Jake Paul pay-per-views.
No, it's not the boxing community.
I think it's the teenage kids. It's the little curly hair, this busting for real. It's those kids. You know what I'm saying?
It is.
It's the kids that drink Prime, having their parents like buy these for them. But it's like, I just wonder what the numbers are like. We always hear like boxing is dead and blah blah blah. Like, I just wonder what those numbers look like.
I really want to see them too. And the fact of the matter is, Jake Paul right now is 5-0 against UFC fighters. He beat Tyron Woodley twice. He beat Ben Askren. He beat Anderson Silva. And now he's beaten Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
And again, if Nate Diaz and Anderson Silva are willing to take that bag, and listen, get your bag, man. Who am I to say? You know? But if these top level fighters, if the money is that good, like, we're gonna keep seeing this. The only issue is like, why are you fighting these guys who are so past their prime, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe I'm sure Dana would let somebody like pick a nobody who's a good boxer, and fight them. Somebody who's in your weight class, middleweight or light heavyweight, and pick them, right? So
I love that you mentioned that because I had an idea. Jake Paul is signed with the PFL, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how realistic it is now that Dana could have one of his guys fight Jake Paul in MMA or even in boxing at this point. But since Jake signed with the PFL and he supposedly wants to fight MMA, there's no 185 division in the PFL, by the way.
Oh, really?
They have a 205 though.
And then what's the next one?
Heavyweight. Or do you mean going down? Yeah. I believe welterweight. I don't think they have a middleweight.
It goes 205 to 170?
Yeah.
That is insane.
Anyways, they just don't have the division. The division's kind of poor, as we've talked about 1,000 times on this channel. But the two guys that are in the PFL that are fighting for the 205 title right now and for the $1 million is Josh Silveira and Impa Kasanganay. Our boy, shout out Impa.
Yep.
But they're fighting for the 205 strap. So, and those are two undersized guys. They don't really make 205. They make like 203 when they're fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So if Jake Paul wants to fight MMA and you want to fight some guys that are a little smaller than you, fight them at 205, dude. I would love to see Impa. Hopefully Impa wins. I'm a huge Impa Kasanganay fan, as you know. But even if it's Josh Silveira, I would love to see those guys get the opportunity to fight Jake Paul in MMA.
And they could certainly use the money more than
Nate Diaz and Anderson Silva and Jorge Masvidal and Conor McGregor, right? And they could use the clout and they could use the money. Yeah. And it's like, for Nate, you're still fighting guys that are smaller than you. And as much as it pains me to say, those guys ain't Jorge Masvidal.
Right.
They ain't Anderson Silva, in his prime. So you get like a little bit of a more winnable matchup, I guess.
We let him off the hook, man. We let him off the hook, and we let the fighters off the hook because you expect more from these legends. But again, it's almost like I can't say too much because it's like, get your money, you know? Like, say what you will about Jake Paul. The one thing that he can do really well is marketing.
Of course.
And he knows how to make money. So,
hey, man, Logan.
The issue is for me is that, absolutely, but the issue for me is that he positions himself like this ally of MMA fighters and all this stuff, right? And, Dana, pay fighters. And then you're literally beating the shit out of these guys. At the end of the day, you're cheapening the entire sport.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Do you think it cheapens MMA?
It cheapens. It's an embarrassment to MMA.
Do you think it cheapens?
It's an embarrassment to MMA, and it's like what? Like how can it not be? It's like he's this guy, and again, he's not bad, but he's an influencer, and he's 5-0 against UFC fighters.
Yeah,
some legends too, and I know they're past their prime.
More so than cheapening like the MMA product, it's making MMA fighters look weak and terrible. That like the best of them can't beat this 25-year-old kid that started boxing 3 years ago.
Yep.
When most of them have been doing this for 20 years.
You know what's funny? I know that as a fact in my brain.
Yeah.
But it still is like, oh, look at these fucking scrubs. They can't beat Jake Paul when I watch it. And then think about how the casual fan.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we know what we're looking at. And I'm sure a lot of you guys know what you're looking at and agree with us. And if you do, let us know. If you don't, we'd love to talk to you. Hit us up in the comments. But my thing is it cheapening boxing or is it doing anything for the sport of boxing?
I think boxing is dead. It was dead already.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting question, to be honest, because at its core, it's cheap. It's terrible for boxing.
Okay.
I'm sure the boxing purists hate it.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about boxing, any type of boxing, people are definitely watching more.
Yeah. I mean, they have to, right? Like, we have a bunch of friends that aren't MMA fans, but they tune into the big fights and they're texting us about it. And these are guys that watch once a month.
Right.
Then we have some friends that don't know anything about boxing.
But everybody's watching the Jake Paul fight.
They know a little about MMA, but like they don't know anything about boxing. But they're hitting us up when these big fights are going on and just trying to see what we think and whatever. I don't know, man. I don't know what it's doing for boxing. All I know is as an MMA fan, and like you said, we started as boxing fans. Like I love the sport. I think it's amazing. It is a big portion of the sport that we cover. However, I just think that what I want is us as a community, we're taking an L right now.
Big time.
The MMA community has taken a fat L.
Big time.
And a lot of us want to see Jake Paul hurt. Like, we want somebody to just hurt him and kind of like put him in his place. You're talking all this shit about MMA. Like I said, go fight Impa, go fight Josh Silveira, whoever wins. I just wish that before this PFL thing happened, Dino, that Dana was like, all right, I'm sick of this guy. Come through, brother. Yeah. You get one fight in the UFC. Oh, what do you want to fight at? 85? Here's Alex Pereira.
And Dana's taking a double L now. Oh my God, Alex
Here's Alex Pereira. Oh, you want to fight at 205? Go ahead. Here's Jan Blachowicz. You know? Here, give him like a top 5 guy.
Hey, literally, give him, not even, bro, give him a top 20. Give him a top 20 guy in middleweight.
Like, Iwan Kutalaba is touching him up.
Primarily oh my God.
Kennedy is touching him up. Kennedy's got a little chin.
The chin is iffy, but,
right, but
bro, Iwan Kutalaba is putting him out, dude.
That's what I'm saying. I wish we got to see that.
Dustin Jacoby is knocking him out.
I wish we got to see it.
I want to see either. Listen, this is what's next, right? The question is, what's next for Jake Paul? All I would want to see is either, dude, fight a fucking boxer, whether it's
a real guy,
whether it's Tommy Fury's trash ass again, or if you don't want to fight a true boxer, fight an MMA or UFC fighter in their prime.
Right.
Fight somebody who's 32 or younger.
That's the Impa point.
Who's primarily a striker at least.
Right.
Not a fucking Ben Askren.
Right.
Who's a wrestler, has no striking.
Or Nate Diaz, who was never a knockout power guy, who's a jiu-jitsu
guy.
Bro,
but even Nate Diaz, if it was 10 years ago,
yeah,
I think I would take Nate Diaz. Bro, Nate Diaz won 4 rounds.
He fought Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva's 50. You know what I'm saying? Like, Anderson Silva's old. Maybe I'm exaggerating on his age, but he's old.
Yeah, he's old.
Who's next for Jake Paul? Cowboy Cerrone?
Oh, God.
See, Frankie Edgar? Like, who are you fighting? You know what I'm saying? You're fighting guys literally that are smaller than you, that aren't boxers. Like, I don't know. To me,
dude, I would rather
really
watch
stupid.
KSI. Yeah. Him versus KSI. Because at least he's training in boxing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and at least he's like his size, you know? So, I don't know. So, for me, the one thing is Jake Paul says he wants to fight Diaz in MMA. Now that he's beaten him in boxing, he has nothing to lose if he fights him in MMA. Aside from he's got all the things to gain, millions to gain. So,
do you think Nate wins that fight?
Nate wins that in the first round.
Yeah.
And it's not close, right? But that's Jake Paul's toe dipping into MMA. He's already got a win over him, right? In his realm. He has nothing to lose. So, for me...
We've seen Clarissa Shields.
Yeah.
Who is...
But it's women's.
But she's one of the best women's boxers of all time. We've seen her come to MMA and struggle. It's a different game. And to me, that's the biggest issue. Is like, I feel like it's a very niche community, this MMA niche community. It's MMA community. Sorry. Not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very small niche community. It's a new sport. It's only about 30 years old. And I feel like we're just getting shat on in different directions.
Well, especially because I feel like there are still worldwide more boxing fans.
Of course there is.
You know?
So anytime they see these guys, like a lot of those people have never seen Nate Diaz fight.
Yeah.
They don't know who Nate Diaz is.
Yeah.
He comes in, he's pointing, he's throwing pillow fists.
You know?
Yeah. And it's just like, that's MMA. That's the guy that beat Conor McGregor.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the guy that beat Conor McGregor.
That's one of the best fighters in the sport, like legend in the sport.
Right.
Yeah.
At least Conor did himself proud when he fought Floyd Mayweather.
Conor, I don't know if you saw, he was shitting on him.
Of course he was.
On X, sorry, not X.
X.
I hate that, by the way.
You guys should follow us on X. We don't have an X.
We're not on an X, yeah. But yeah, he was shitting on, and rightfully so. I mean, get the bag, bro. I get it, but it's unfortunate. But please, at least fight a boxer or fight somebody in their prime, who's your size.
Yeah. And if you're gonna fight some MMA guys, fight some real MMA guys.
Right.
And let's get it. Yeah. I want to see Jake Paul get slumped by somebody at some point. I know I sound like a hater, and it's like I don't really like Jake Paul, but I don't really care about Jake Paul.
I respect what he's doing for his pockets.
Right, but stop, you're ruining our community. You're taking, you know what I mean? It's sad, bro.
I think both boxing and MMA purists can agree on that.
Yeah, and that's what it is. So, anything else, Dino?
Nah, man, that's really it. It's unfortunate, but I get it.
All right, guys, he's DS. I'm Dino Bam Bam. This is D107 MMA. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, click the little thumbs up, click the subscribe button, ring the little bell. You can also follow us on Instagram at D107MMA. He's DS. I'm Dino Bam Bam. Peace.